Good evening to our viewers out there. Today we'll be interviewing Nathaniel Hawthorne, author of the Scarlet Letter. He has come to discuss the main character of this American classic, Hester Prynne, the adulterer. Let's begin. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Hawthorne.
The pleasure is all mine.
Describe Hester Prynne's physical characteristics.
Hester, as you can see at the beginning of the novel, held a youthful beauty that others envied. She stood tall, exuding an elegant confidence. Her hair was luscious, dark, and abundant. It gleamed like sunshine. Her face, besides being beautiful from regularity of feature and richness of complexion, was striking due to her intense, marked brow and deep black eyes. She was ladylike in the antique interpretation of the term, and wore ostentatious clothing she knit with her own hands. However, there is a dramatic difference in appearance once Hester bears the infamous Scarlet Letter. Her luscious hair is tied up into a bun. She conceals any signs of color in her life by constantly wearing gray clothing. Her face has lost all color as well and bears little signs of life. Any signs of womanhood and attractiveness disappear altogether.
Now, how does Hester's physical description add to the effect of her character on the reader? What purpose does she serve?
In a way, Hester's physical descriptions is reflective of her sin and the consequences, the great effects of the sin. At the beginning of the story, she is a young, strong-willed, beautiful woman. She held a graceful, ladylike charm in her walk. This makes the reader sympathize with her. One would think someone like Hester would be held highly, or at least moderately, in society. When she first stood on the scaffold, the stranger who passed would have thought that she was standing there to be praised and lauded. Instead, she is there to be shamed. She loses all respect from society because of her sin. Living through years with the isolation associated with the Scarlet Letter has also caused her to lose her youthful beauty. Now, this causes readers to think that maybe the punishment was too harsh and feel empathy for Hester. Perhaps some think that she deserves it, but it's all readers can interpret the emotion they feel however they like.
What action does Hester Prynne take? What are you suggesting by her actions?
In order to pay for her sins, she lives her life dedicated to others. Hester is often seen tending to the ill, the poor, and the afflicted. She will bring warm clothes to them or other helpful materials they might need. Even though the people she helps return no affection, she continues to provide aid for them. Though these actions, I am trying to show how Hester believes she can pay her debt to society after committing the worst sin of that era. Throughout the story, we see Hester change from a shame-torn woman to one who finds solace in isolation. After years of helping others, Hester becomes known as an able woman instead of an adulterer. She lives in solitude without bringing hindrance to anybody. She knits for a living. She only buys bread for her and Pearl and accepts her situation calmly. In the novel, there's a time when a townsperson speaks to her and she only responds by pointing at the letter. However, rather than an act of humility, it was more of an act of pride. She has eventually grown bitter of society and its institutions, and so she isolates society. Society doesn't isolate her.
Describe the interplay between your character and the other main characters in the book.
Roger Chillingworth is Hester's husband. Chillingworth was a very studious, intellectual man, but his studies seemed to overpower his love. As a result, Hester had an affair. Some may believe that he still held feelings for her as he vowed to take revenge upon the man who humiliated him. In the prison scene, when Chillingworth goes to see Hester after her ignominy, Hester feels the distance between each other, and Chillingworth does as well. He promptly breaks all ties with her as he felt betrayed, but he partly blames himself for her sin as he never really cared for her. They kept each other's secret and never looked back. Hester later realizes that she hates Chillingworth, but Chillingworth most likely held feelings, maybe a crazy obsession for her, as he makes him only goal in life revenge. It's very likely her sin is what led to his destruction. This monster who had no purpose in life but to seek revenge. Arthur Dimmesdale and Hester are lovers and partners in crime. Hester couldn't take the anguish she felt with Chillingworth anymore and proceeded to fall in love with the kind minister in her church. In the heat of the moment and though strong feelings of passion, they fell in love and committed adultery. Unlike Hester, however, he cannot reveal his sin. He envies her and her Scarlet Letter. Because he's a priest and a public figure, Dimmesdale finds that he cannot reveal his sin and lives his life in hypocrisy. He grows sickly and always places his hand on his breast, perhaps concealing the Scarlet Letter of his own heart. As a result of his misery and self-torment, Hester becomes an uplifting force in his life. She gives him hope. hope that all will turn out well. She soothes this wrecked soul through strong words and actions. Before they were sinners, they were lovers. Pearl is Hester and Dimsdale's daughter. She is the living entity of their love. On occasion, Pearl asks Hester about several curious things. Hester is afraid of this elfish child, afraid that she is a product of sin and Satan. Pearl is often described as bird-like, for she is a free spirit and will not be contained. Pearl is particularly fascinated by the Scarlet Letter and thus makes Hester's fear for Pearl's well-being. She's afraid that Pearl has no feelings of affection in her and that she will grow up without womanhood, just like Hester with the Scarlet Letter. Hester does love Pearl as Pearl, like her name is a treasure to her. Hester always knitted beautiful, elaborate clothing for Pearl and go everywhere with her, though she doesn't have much of a choice. Thus, Hester loves Pearl, but she is trying her best to protect Pearl from demonic evils.
What is Hester Prime thinking? How would you compare her inward thoughts and her outward actions?
People initially believed that Hester recognized the degree of her sin and repents by forcing herself to live in sin and provide aid to those who need it. Citizens of the village eventually changed the meaning of the aid to able, as they come to admire her humility and strength. This may not be the case, however. The Scarlet Letter provided Hester with shame, despair, and solitude as her teachers, though they may have taught her amiss. It is not society that isolates Hester, but Hester that isolates herself from society. The years of bearing the Scarlet Letter have made her bitter. She reasons that she does not want to be part of a society with the condemnable human institutions. Since she is constantly alone, she thinks more logically and through reasoning. As a result, sinful thoughts deprived of emotions have led her astray. The Scarlet Letter has done the opposite of its intended job. What others see as a humility is more of an act of pride.
What is your attitude toward her character? What devices do you use to express her character? Imagery, detail, words and diction, figures of speech, symbols associated with your character?
It does sound like I'm disapproving of Hester as the story develops. As I said before, the Scarlet Letter has given shame, despair, and solitude as teachers, symbolism if you will, to Hester, but it may have taught her wrongly. She begins to think about things she never would have before the loneliness that attributed with the letter. I go on to detail on how she contemplates sin in society, using reason to conclude that human institutions have flaws that she is above of. She feels more pride than humility as a result. Towards the end of the novel, you can see Hester plotting to run away from her sin with Dimmesdale and Pearl alongside her. However, this is the greatest of sin as there is intent in it. She deliberately plans to sin, the evilest of all sins. However, I do admire her strength, sense of feminism, and passion. The Scarlet Letter symbolizes sin and her strength as an independent woman. She was perhaps punished more than necessary, but she was still able to stand tall.
How would you summarize the nature of your character? What meaning do you intend for Hester?
My purpose for Hester was to show both the strength of emotions, the effect sin has on people, and outer appearance is not the same as inner appearance. In the time of Puritan New England, adultery was seen as one of the worst possible crimes one could commit. It was punishable by execution. However, Hester was excused of such a harsh punishment and was accordingly isolated by society. Through Hester, I am trying to portray how emotions and reasons may change a person. Hester is by nature a beautifully bold woman who holds a lot of pride in herself. She is morphed into one who thinks harmful thoughts, however, but once she found passion and love again, she redeems herself.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Hawthorne. I feel like I was able to understand Hester Prime as a whole. This has been Mr. Hawthorne. Please come back again next week for my interview with Arthur Miller, the author of The Crucible.